Welcome to OWAD Today. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. Let's start a new week. Start with a new radical. Not that big of a difference from the last week's radical, mian. This week, we just removed the dot on the top. And it turned out it's kind of a similar looking thing. It's not exactly unified looking thing. You will see what I mean by that. Because the shelter with the chimney on the top, always a big arch, and then on the dot on the top. But this, without the dot on the top, it could be a variety of things. And that's the surprising part. By removing the dot on the top, either energy or chimney, however we can theorize that, this gives us more possibilities. Okay, the first one here is zhǒng. It means grave. Okay, sorry to open a week with a kind of heavy concept, grave. But I guess graveyard. I would say in America, graveyard were maintained as peaceful, quiet corner of the city, actually. I mean, I don't have loved ones buried anywhere yet in this land, happily, not yet. Maybe I'm the first one of my bloodline here. But I did went to American, what do you call it? Cemetery. And the cemetery, not exactly the neighborhood ones, but could be covering several neighborhoods, like a big hill of graves. And the best one so far in my memory is in Manua Valley, where it's in a valley, a shower slot, and you can tell it's a long time, it's a generations. I forgot, I didn't roam through all of them, but hundreds of years ago could be still buried in there. And you can see it's not exactly by the ocean. Okay, Manua Valley is on Oahu Island, and over there, the graveyard gave you a very, very calming piece of sense of peace over there. So anyway, okay, grave. All I'm saying is grave is not necessarily a dark concept. To me, it brought nice memories of me of this calming place, a tropical place, can be beautiful, and also gives you a sense of seeing the different lifespans, right, of previous generations, people have existed before us, to make you more cherish the time above the ground here. Okay. Simplified and traditional, the difference is here in the traditional, we add a soil symbol over there to give you a sense of the categorical type, material of this concept that I guess in ancient times, grave was made of soil, covered by soil. Like in contemporary grave, it's a lot of times limestones or type of stone carved. Sometimes wood carving over there, some sort of decoration that's, I guess, made by artisans. That's not just simple soil. But the concept started at a time when grave making was not so fancy as today. And if you look at the ancient 2,000 years ago's version by Xu Sheng's dictionary, okay, this looks pretty close, right? We came across this character, lookalike, before in the concept of a home, where we place this this pig imagery under a roof that shows the possession, the property, the major property of, I guess, ancient household. How do you show you can provide by having pig under that roof, under your possession? And that shows your, I guess, financial stability. It's kind of the equivalent of net wealth of today's. And here, The difference is we have this extra dot on these sidelines. And when we look at ancient 史, this pig imagery or boar imagery, these are exactly the legs of the pig. And actually, this is probably the fourth leg. So we're supposed to have 4 legs, 1 tail. And then the head was cut off, I guess, simplified. It's too much to write all that out. But this is one of the earliest human diet that's meat source, but human farmed. It's kind of a livestock industry going in parallel with agriculture, so that hunter and gatherer practice could be replaced by reproduce local, stationed, settled in here. And this bound-legged pig was an ancient practice to bury pig, probably live bury. That's why it's bound-legged, so it didn't run away, underground. And here, this structure is one of the versions to show this pig was actually wrapped. This is a wrapper inside and buried underground. And that's associated, again, as a status symbol. Almost like, okay, pig, the count of pig was the ancient type of count of wealth, unit of wealth. And to show, even after death, what social status someone was on probably was based on how many pigs were buried next to the person. And also Chinese had a belief that afterlife, it was not in heaven, okay? It's somewhere under the ground, and you had a second chance at afterlife, imagined life after life, okay? Post-life life, okay? Then to have food or comfort. That's why pig was buried, to continue feeding this already non-biological body, but just based on the living person's wishes, to wish their past ones still have protein source. Okay, so that's the association, and the whole thing pronounced as zhǒng. The thing without the binding is a 史, means pig, and with the binding, bound-legged pig, pronounced as, okay, 畜, okay. I don't remember because I don't ever use that. I mean, nowadays when we interact with pigs, it's pork, right? We don't interact with live pigs anymore. Not alone to talk about the bound-leg pigs. Like, okay, 畜, useless information, but I guess that's part of history. That's how language was evolved. Okay, examples of 古种, ancient grave. Probably the family line, I guess I shouldn't say definitively because I don't really know. But as far as I know, that later generations are supposed to maintain the grave of the previous generation. And if this family tree was well maintained, the lineage is clear and it's not ended at some point. So this whole collection of graves should be maintained by later generations to see how far you can trace back, right? But as I said, in ancient times, the grave may have a different, I guess, luxury level or build that can endure different time scale. So some, if it's just buried by soil, then after a few generations, it's gone, it's leveled up, right? We can imagine that simply due to nature's forces. And if it's somebody who was probably a prominent figure in that generation, and then the later generation maintained the grave well, then we may see this 古种. 古 means 10 generations. So translated to today's scale, probably 200 years or so. So if it's 200 years older grave, that will be considered a 古种 in Chinese categorization. And conversely, 青种, kind of a blue-greenish color paired with 种 means this is a new grave. The grass is still growing on it. You can see the seeds were still popping on it. So 青种 means kind of a new grave. And also 青 itself means the color of life. So that means that the life underneath that grave probably passed away not that long ago. The life was still showing on top of the grave, that it shows the color of life. Okay. 衣冠冢. 衣 clothing, 冠 hat. So that means this grave doesn't contain the person itself, doesn't have the flesh bones of the body, but only the clothing, the hat. And hat is an important part of that person's identity. At least it's the social identity. That's why you need to keep the clothes, the hat, to kind of help identify this is that particular person. So here is an imagery of, Western concept of how a grave would look like. And this is a beautiful corner of the graveyard, I guess. And it shows so peacefully an angel, right? Leaning over, as if listening, as if taking a nap. And that's all we end up with one day. All right, 种. Thank you for your time. See you another day.